Odette Turner wakes up every morning at 5:30 a.m. before the sun begins to peek through the blinds of their bedroom in their two-story house on Oak Street. At 32, she looks younger than her age, with short brown hair and attentive brown eyes, the result of 8 years working as a nurse in the intensive care unit at Magnolia Hospital. Her movements are precise and methodical, qualities that have saved more than one life in critical situations. Maurice is still asleep when Odette makes coffee in the kitchen. At 35, he remains an attractive man with strong mechanic's hands and a face that women in town still find charming. They married 7 years ago after a 3-year relationship, and their marriage has always seemed exemplary to those around them. Maurice owns half of the shares in the Turner and Sons auto repair shop with his father, and their business is thriving thanks to their solid reputation in the city. "Breakfast is ready," Odette says quietly as Maurice comes down the stairs, still sleepy. He hugs her from behind, kissing her neck, which smells of light floral perfume. "What would I do without you?" he whispers, and Odette smiles, handing him a plate of eggs and bacon. It's their ritual, every morning, 5 days a week, for 7 years in a row. Odette leaves for work first at 6:45 to be in time for her shift at 7. Maurice leaves for his workshop at 8. On weekends, they go shopping at the mall or visit relatives. Magnolia Hospital is a modern 4-story building that serves not only the city, but also the surrounding rural areas. Odette works in the intensive care unit, where she deals with life and death every day. Her colleagues respect her for her professionalism and compassion for her patients. Head nurse Carol Davis often says that Odette is the kind of nurse every patient would want to have by their side. "Odette never loses her composure," says Dr. Robert Miller, a cardiac surgeon who has been working with her for 4 years. "Even when things aren't going well, she stays focused. Patients sense that and trust her." On this particular Thursday, Odette is caring for a 70-year-old farmer named James Whitley, who suffered a heart attack 3 days ago. His wife, Mary, stays by his bedside, holding his hand and praying quietly. "How is he today?" Mary asks as Odette checks the IV. "His vitals are stable. That's a good sign," Odette replies with an encouraging smile. "Dr. Miller will be making his rounds in an hour. He'll be able to tell you more." Moments like these remind Odette why she chose this profession. After her father died of cancer when she was 19, she decided to devote her life to helping others. Maurice supported her decision to become a nurse, even though it meant 4 years of intense study and training. Meanwhile, at Turner and Sons Auto Repair, Maurice is working on the engine of a 2018 Chevrolet Silverado. The shop is located on the industrial outskirts of town, in a low brick building built by his grandfather in the 1960s. The walls are covered with vintage car posters and photos of 3 generations of Turners working on their projects. "This truck has seen better days," Maurice tells his assistant Tommy, a 19-year-old apprentice. "But the engine will still run if you tune it right." Maurice's father, Frank Turner, is 68 and still comes to the workshop every day, although he spends more time advising than working with his hands. He is proud that his son is continuing the family tradition, and especially that Maurice married such a nice girl as Odette. "Your wife called," Frank says as he enters the workshop around noon. "She reminded me about dinner at Naomi's on Sunday." Naomi Harrison, Odette's mother, lives in the Riverside neighborhood on the other side of town, in a small 1-story house she bought after divorcing Odette's father 12 years ago. At 52, she looks her age, with graying hair that she dyes light brown and a face that shows the signs of time. Naomi has been working as a cashier at Food Max supermarket for 8 years and is considered one of the most reliable employees. Her co-workers know Naomi as a quiet, responsible woman who rarely participates in office gossip. She lives modestly, saving money for retirement and occasionally treating herself to a movie or dinner at a restaurant with her only friend, Gloria Martinez. "Naomi has always been a good mother," says Gloria, who has been her friend for 15 years. After her divorce, she focused entirely on Odette. She wanted her daughter to get an education and have a better life than she did. Odette and her mother have always been close, especially since Odette's father died. Naomi supported her daughter through school, helped out financially when she could, and was genuinely happy when Odette married Maurice. "Maurice is a good man," Naomi often said. "He cares about you. He has a stable job, and he comes from a decent family." On Sundays, the family tradition is to have dinner at Naomi's house. Odette cooks something special, Maurice brings dessert, and Naomi sets the table in her small dining room. They discuss work, plans for the week, and the latest news in town. These evenings always take place in a warm family atmosphere. On Thursday evening, on her way home from work, Odette stops at the grocery store to pick up ingredients for tomorrow's dinner. She plans to make Maurice's favorite dish, roast chicken with mashed potatoes and green beans. She is served at the checkout by Sarah, a young woman who recently started working there. "Mrs. Turner, how's your mom doing?" Sarah asks. "I saw her last week. She looked great." "Naomi's doing great, thanks," Odette replies. "Working as usual, maybe even too much." At home, Maurice is already preparing a barbecue in the backyard. This is another of their traditions. On Thursdays, he cooks on the grill while Odette relaxes after a hard day at the hospital. Their house on Oak Street is a two-story 1990s structure with white siding and blue shutters, surrounded by a neat lawn and rose beds that Odette plants every spring. "How was your day?" Maurice asks, turning the steaks on the grill. "Tough. Mr. Whitley is on the mend, but we got a new stroke patient. A young guy, only 30, Odette says, sitting down in a chair on the patio and taking off her work shoes. "How about you?" "Same as usual. Finished the Johnson's truck, started working on Mrs. Anderson's BMW. She's complaining about noise in the engine again, even though we've checked it 3 times. Maurice smiles, pouring beer into 2 glasses. They have dinner on the patio, watching the sun set behind the trees in their neighborhood. Neighbors are watering their lawns, children are playing in the street. It's an idyllic picture of American suburban life, but it hides the tragedy that is about to unfold. After dinner, they watch TV in the living room. Odette reads a medical journal while Maurice flips through channels looking for a baseball game. At 10 o'clock, they go upstairs to bed, and their day ends as quietly as it began. No one on that Thursday could have imagined that in a few weeks, this peaceful life would turn into a nightmare that would shake the entire town of Magnolia. Odette notices the first signs that something has changed at the end of August. Maurice, who always came home at 6 o'clock sharp, starts staying out late, first by half an hour, then an hour, and sometimes even longer. "Sorry, honey," he says as he walks into the house at 7:30 on another Tuesday. "We had a tough case come in today, a 1967 Mustang. I had to tinker with the engine longer than I planned." Odette nods, reheating his dinner in the microwave. She knows that a mechanic's work is unpredictable, but something about Maurice's tone seems unnatural to her. He avoids her gaze, quickly goes upstairs to take a shower, without sharing any details about his day, as usual. At dinner, Maurice is quiet, answering her questions about work with one-word answers. When Odette tells him about a difficult operation she witnessed that afternoon, he just nods, clearly thinking about something else. "Are you listening to me?" she asks. "Of course I am. I'm just tired," Maurice replies. But his phone lights up with a notification on the table, and he quickly turns it face down. The next day, Odette decides to stop by the workshop during her lunch break to invite Maurice to lunch, as they sometimes did in the past. But when she pulls up to Turner & Sons, Tommy, Maurice's assistant, tells her that Maurice left on an errand about an hour ago. "He said he had to go to the parts supplier," explains the 19-year-old, wiping his hands on a rag. "He should be back by 3. Odette knows that all the major suppliers are in the industrial area, which is at most a half-hour drive there and back. She doesn't mention this to Tommy, just asks him to tell Maurice that she stopped by. In the evening, when she mentions her visit, Maurice looks annoyed. "Why did you come without warning? I was busy," he says more sharply than usual. "Next time, call first." Odette is surprised by his reaction. Maurice used to be happy when she came to the workshop. He proudly showed her to his colleagues and called her the most beautiful nurse in Mississippi. The changes are not limited to working hours. Maurice is becoming more secretive at home. His phone is now always locked, whereas before it used to lie unlocked on the kitchen table. When someone calls, Maurice either doesn't answer or goes into another room saying it's work. One night in early September, Odette wakes up at 2 in the morning and finds that Maurice is not in bed. She finds him in the living room, sitting in the dark with his phone in his hands. "What are you doing?" she asks quietly. Maurice flinches and quickly puts his phone away. "I couldn't sleep. I was reading the news," he replies, but the phone screen is dark, clearly not showing any news. "Let's go to bed," Odette says, but she feels a strange distance growing between them. Their physical closeness is also changing. Maurice is becoming less affectionate, hugging her less often, and their intimacy is reduced to formal goodnight kisses. When Odette tries to be more proactive, he finds excuses: tiredness, headaches, having to get up early. But the changes aren't limited to Maurice. Naomi is also starting to act strangely. During a family dinner on a Sunday in early September, Odette notices that her mother looks different. Naomi has a new hairstyle, a new dress, and is wearing more makeup than usual. For a woman who has adhered to a simple, practical style for years, this seems unexpected. "Mom, you look beautiful," Odette says. "What's the occasion?" Naomi blushes, which is also unusual for her. "No occasion. I just decided it was time for a little change," she replies, but her voice sounds uncertain. At dinner, Odette notices a strange tension between Maurice and her mother. They hardly speak to each other, although Maurice has always been very polite and friendly to Naomi in the past. Now he avoids her gaze, and when they accidentally touch each other while passing dishes, they both look uncomfortable. "You two are quiet tonight," Odette remarks. "Just tired from work," Naomi replies quickly. "And I'm thinking about problems at the workshop," Maurice adds. But Odette senses that this is not the whole truth. The following week, she decides to drop in on her mother unannounced, as she always did. But when she knocks on Naomi's door on Thursday evening, no one answers, even though her mother's car is in the driveway. Odette uses the spare key she has had for many years and enters the house. "Mom? Are you home?" she calls. Naomi comes out of the bedroom, looking agitated and slightly disheveled. "Odette, you scared me. Why did you come?" There is an irritation in her mother's voice that Odette has never heard before. "I was driving by after work and decided to visit. You didn't answer your phone yesterday," Odette explains, looking around the house. There are 2 glasses on the coffee table, even though Naomi lives alone. "I had a friend over. Gloria stopped by," Naomi says quickly, but Odette knows that Gloria works the second shift and is never free on Thursday evenings. "Maybe I'll stay for dinner," Odette offers. "Not tonight, dear. I'm not feeling well. I think I ate something bad," Naomi says, heading for the door, clearly wanting her daughter to leave. As she leaves her mother's house, Odette feels a mixture of confusion and suspicion. The 2 people closest to her are acting strangely, and she doesn't understand why. At work, Odette tries to focus on her patients, but her thoughts keep returning to home. Her colleague and friend Jennifer Walsh notices her distraction. "You're not yourself today," Jennifer says during a break. "What's going on?" Odette hesitates, then decides to share her doubts. "Jennifer, you've been married for 10 years. Tell me honestly, how can you tell if your husband is cheating on you?" Jennifer looks at her intently. "Odette, do you have any reason to think that?" "I don't know. Maybe. Maurice has changed. He stays late at work, is secretive with his phone, and we hardly talk," Odette lists. "Those are classic signs," Jennifer says cautiously. "But it could be stress at work, or problems he doesn't want to talk about. Have you tried talking to him openly?" "I have. He says everything is fine, that I'm making problems up." Jennifer puts her hand on her friend's shoulder. "Trust your intuition. Women sense these things, but don't jump to conclusions without proof." That evening, Odette decides to follow Jennifer's advice and try to have a frank conversation with Maurice. She prepares his favorite dinner, sets the table with candles as she does on special occasions, and waits for him to return. Maurice arrives at 7 o'clock, which is quite early for him lately. "What's the celebration?" he asks when he sees the table set. "No celebration. I just wanted us to have dinner together like we used to. I feel like we've grown apart lately," Odette says, sitting down across from him. Maurice tenses up. "I don't know what you're talking about. Everything's the same as always." "Maurice, you've changed. You stay late at work, you don't talk to me, your phone is always off. If there's a problem, let's talk about it. We're husband and wife." "There's no problem. You're thinking too much," he replies, but avoids her gaze. Then explain to me why, when I came to the workshop last week, Tommy said you were away visiting a supplier for 2 hours? Maurice looks up sharply. Are you following me? I'm not following you. I just wanted to invite you to lunch and you decided to check if I was telling the truth? Maurice's voice becomes cold. Odette, I have a complicated business. Sometimes I have to run errands. It's none of your concern. None of my concern? I'm your wife. Maurice stands up from the table. I'm not hungry. We'll eat later, he says, heading for the stairs. Maurice, wait. We're not done talking. We are. Don't make a problem where there isn't one. He goes up to the bedroom, leaving Odette alone with a romantic dinner that has turned into yet another misunderstanding. The situation doesn't improve over the weekend. Maurice becomes even more distant, and Naomi cancels their traditional Sunday dinner, citing poor health. Maybe I should come over and cook something for you, Odette offers on the phone. No, don't bother. I'll just lie around at home. See you next week, Naomi says, rushing to end the conversation. Odette stays home with Maurice, but he spends most of the day in the garage, supposedly working on his old motorcycle. When she checks on him, he is sitting at the workbench with his phone in his hands. Who are you texting? She asks as casually as possible. Tommy, we're planning work for next week, Maurice replies, but quickly puts his phone away. By the end of September, Odette realizes she can no longer ignore the obvious changes in her life. Something is definitely going on, and it threatens her marriage. The only question is what exactly and how serious it is. Lying in bed next to her husband, who has turned his back to her and is pretending to be asleep, Odette makes a decision. She must find out the truth, no matter how painful it may be. The truth is revealed to Odette on the first Wednesday in October in the most brutal way possible. That day, there was an emergency at the hospital, a massive accident on Highway 155, and all the nurses were asked to stay late. Odette worked until 11 o'clock at night, helping out in the operating room. Exhausted, she drives home, thinking only of a hot bath and sleep. As she pulls up to the house, she notices that the windows are dark. Strange. Maurice usually doesn't go to bed before midnight watching sports. His truck is in the driveway, which means he's home. Odette quietly enters the house, not wanting to wake her husband if he decided to go to bed early. But as she climbs the stairs, she hears his voice coming from the bedroom. Maurice is talking to someone on the phone. She stops at the half-open bedroom door, intending to wait until he finishes his conversation so as not to interrupt him. What she hears makes her blood run cold. I can't wait to see you tomorrow, Maurice says in the quiet, intimate voice he once used with her. Tonight was incredible. A pause. Odette leans against the wall, her heart pounding. I miss you too. I hate that we have to hide. Maurice continues. She's out late tonight, won't be home until morning. Another pause. Odette closes her eyes, realizing that she is herself. I know it's hard, but you understand that I can't just leave my wife. I need time to sort everything out. His voice grows even quieter, and Odette is forced to move closer to the door. Of course I love you, more than I ever loved her. You know that. Odette feels the world crumbling around her. Her worst suspicions are confirmed, but the worst is yet to come. Naomi, Maurice whispers into the receiver. My dear Naomi. The sound of his mother's name, spoken with such tenderness, hits Odette like a physical blow. She grabs the doorframe to keep from falling. Nausea rises in her throat. See you tomorrow after work. I love you. Odette hears the phone being placed on the nightstand. She quietly descends the stairs, leaves the house, and gets into her car, not knowing what to do next. Her hands are shaking so badly that she cannot start the engine. Maurice and her mother. The man she married 7 years ago and the woman who gave birth to her, whom she trusted more than anyone else in the world. The double betrayal cuts deeper than any physical pain. Odette sits in the car for almost an hour, trying to make sense of what she has heard. Fragments of the last few weeks come together to form a terrible picture. Maurice's late nights at work, her mother's new look, their strange behavior during their last family dinner, canceled meetings. How long has this been going on? Weeks? Months? Odette recalls all the moments when Maurice and Naomi were together. Last Christmas, when her mother stayed late, helping with the cleaning. Odette's birthday in May, when Maurice and Naomi disappeared into the kitchen for half an hour, supposedly preparing a surprise. Finally, she decides to go home. The house is dark. Maurice must be asleep. Odette goes up to the bedroom, changes in the bathroom, and lies down in bed next to her husband, who is cheating on her with his own mother. She lies awake until dawn, planning her next steps. The next day at the hospital, Odette works like a machine. Her colleagues notice that she is unusually quiet, but they attribute it to fatigue from yesterday's overtime. "You look terrible," Jennifer says during lunch break. "Maybe you should go home early?" "I'm fine," Odette replies, although that is far from the truth. All day long, she thinks about what to do. Part of her wants to make a scene right away, kick Maurice out of the house, and never speak to her mother again. But another part of her needs more information. She has to know the whole truth. After work, instead of going home, Odette drives to her mother's house. Naomi is supposed to be at work until 7, but Odette knows where her mother hides the spare key. She has never used it without permission before, but now is not the time for etiquette. Naomi's house looks the same as always, but Odette now sees it with different eyes. In her mother's bedroom, she finds a man's shirt in the laundry basket. It's Maurice's shirt, the one she bought him for Father's Day last year. In the bedside table, there are condoms, something a single 52-year-old woman doesn't need. On the dressing table, there are new cosmetics and expensive perfume that her mother could never have afforded on a cashier's salary. But the most painful find is a framed photograph hidden in a dresser drawer. Maurice and Naomi are embracing in front of the Pine Tree Motel on the outskirts of town. They look happy, in love. The photograph was clearly taken recently. Naomi has a new hairstyle, which she got in September. Odette sits down on her mother's bed, holding the photo with trembling hands. This is not a fleeting affair or a mistake made while drunk. This is a real relationship, with its own traditions, gifts, and plans for the future. She hears the sound of a key in the front door lock. Naomi is back from work. Odette quickly puts the photo back in the drawer and goes into the living room. "Odette!" Naomi starts when she sees her daughter. "What are you doing here? How did you get in?" "I used the spare key," Odette replies calmly. "We need to talk, Mom." Something in her daughter's tone makes Naomi tense. She slowly places her purse on the table by the door. "Talk about what?" "About Maurice." Naomi's face turns pale. "I don't understand what you're talking about." "Stop lying!" Odette explodes. "I know about your affair. I heard him talking to you on the phone last night. I saw his shirt in your bedroom. I saw the photo." Naomi sinks into a chair as if her legs won't hold her. "Odette, please let me explain." "Explain?" Odette's voice becomes shrill. "What can you explain? How can you sleep with your own daughter's husband? How long has this been going on?" Naomi starts to cry, but Odette feels no sympathy. "It wasn't planned, it just happened," her mother sobs. "Nothing just happens. You made a decision to betray me. You both made that decision. We didn't want to hurt you. Maurice was going to talk to you." "When? In a year? 2 years? After you got married?" Naomi looks up at her daughter. "Odette, I understand that you're angry, but..." "Angry?" Odette laughs, but there is nothing funny about it. "Mom, you destroyed my life. You're sleeping with my husband, the only man I've ever loved, and you think I'm just angry? I love him too," Naomi says quietly. Those words hurt Odette more than anything else. She could understand a mistake, a moment of weakness. But love, that meant the betrayal was deep and deliberate. "How long?" Odette asks in an icy voice. "What? How long have you been sleeping with my husband?" Naomi is silent for a long minute. 4 months, she finally whispers. 4 months. Odette quickly counts. It started in June, right after her birthday. While she was working at the hospital, saving lives, her mother and husband were meeting in motels. "Where do you meet?" "Odette, please." "Where?" "Here. And at a motel on the outskirts of town, sometimes in the workshop after work." In the workshop, the place Maurice called his second home, where photos of 3 generations of his family hung on the walls, where they had desecrated the memory of his grandfather and father. "Did he tell you he loved you more than me?" Naomi nods, not looking up. "Is he going to file for divorce?" "We discussed the possibility of a future together." a future together. They had planned a life together while Odette worked and made plans for their 7th wedding anniversary. Odette gets up from the couch. She needs to get out of there before she does something she'll regret. Odette, wait! Naomi reaches out to her. We can talk about this. Find a solution. A solution? Odette looks at her mother with disgust. The only solution is for you and him to be out of my life. Forever. You're my daughter. I love you. If you loved me, you wouldn't have slept with my husband. Odette heads for the door. Where are you going to live? Naomi asks. The house is in both your names. Odette stops at the door. She hasn't thought about the practicalities. The house, the bank accounts, the property they've acquired together. Her life is so intertwined with Maurice's that it will be difficult to sever those ties. That's not your concern, she says as she leaves the house. The drive home is a blur. Odette drives automatically, her mind trying to process the magnitude of the betrayal. Not only is her husband cheating on her, but her own mother is involved in destroying her marriage. The woman who raised her, who taught her right from wrong, has betrayed her in the most cruel way possible. Maurice isn't home yet. Odette walks through the rooms that no longer feel like home. Everything reminds her of the 7 years of marriage that now seem like a lie. There are photos of their wedding, vacations together, family celebrations, including Naomi. When Maurice comes home at 7:30 p.m., he finds Odette sitting at the kitchen table with a glass of wine. Hi, honey, how was your day? He says, kissing her on the forehead as usual. It's the pretense that repulses Odette the most. He continues to play the role of the loving husband, knowing that he plans to leave her for his own mother-in-law. Maurice, sit down, we need to talk. Something in her tone makes him wary. About what? About your affair with my mother. Maurice freezes in place. He is silent for a few seconds, then slowly sits down across from her. Odette, don't try to deny it. I know everything. I heard your phone conversation. I was at her house. I saw your shirt, your photo, the condoms. Maurice buries his head in his hands. How long have you been planning to lie to me? Odette continues. I was going to tell you. I was just waiting for the right moment. The right moment to tell your wife that you're fucking her mother? Maurice shudders at the harshness of her words. It's not just sex, Odette. We love each other. You love the woman who gave birth to me, who was at our wedding, who held me in her arms when I was a child. I didn't plan for this to happen, but it did, and you chose to continue. Maurice raises his head, and Odette sees something in his eyes that shocks her even more. Relief. He is glad that the secret is out. Yes, I chose to continue. Because with Naomi, I feel something I never felt with you. These words are the final blow. Odette realizes that her marriage is not just over, it never really existed. That night, they sleep in separate rooms. Divorce is inevitable, but she won't let them get what they want easily. They ruined her life, and she'll make them pay for it. Friday, October 18th, 2024, 10:47 p.m. Autumn rain drums on the roof of the house on Oak Street. Only a table lamp is lit in the living room, casting long shadows on the walls. Maurice sits in his favorite chair in front of the TV, flipping through the channels. Fragments of late news, sports programs, and commercials flash across the screen. He looks relaxed, almost happy. He has a bottle of beer in his hand, his third of the evening. After a week of tension surrounding the revelation of a secret, he seems freed from the need to lie. Tomorrow, he plans to move out of the house and move in with Naomi. They discussed it on the phone an hour ago. The sound of footsteps on the stairs does not attract his attention. Maurice is used to Odette going up and down the stairs in the evenings, to get a book, answer the phone, or just check the locks. Only when a shadow falls on him from the side does he turn his head. Odette? What? A metallic glint in her hand, a quick movement. Maurice doesn't even have time to scream. A kitchen knife, the same one Odette used to cut vegetables for their first dinner together 7 years ago, enters between his ribs with surgical precision. The nurse knows anatomy. Maurice tries to stand up, grabs the armrests of the chair, but the second blow strikes his heart. His eyes open wide in shock and pain. He looks up but sees only a dark silhouette. Why? He croaks, but the words are drowned out by a gurgling sound. The third blow is the last. Maurice slumps in the chair, his head falling back. The TV remote falls from his hand and hits the floor with a thud. The car commercial continues on the screen. Silence. Only the rain on the roof and the ticking of the wall clock. At 11:31 p.m., neighbor Mrs. Elizabeth Chung sees someone leaving the Turner's house and getting into a dark car. She doesn't pay any attention to it. People have the right to leave their homes at any time. At 12:15 a.m., the neighbor's dog starts barking and doesn't stop for 20 minutes. At 6:22 a.m., the mailman, Roger Hill, notices that the newspaper is still lying on the porch of the Turner's house, even though it is usually picked up by 7 in the morning. At 7:45 a.m., the phone rings in the house. No one answers. At 8:30 a.m., Tommy arrives at the auto repair shop and doesn't find Morris. This is strange. His boss is never late without warning. At 9:15 a.m., Tommy calls the Turner's house. No one answers. At 10:30 a.m., Tommy, worried, drives to the house on Oak Street. "Mr. Turner, Mrs. Turner," he shouts, knocking on the door. Silence. Tommy walks around the house, peering through the windows. In the living room window, he sees Maurice sitting in his chair, motionless. At 10:47, a call is made to 911. 911, what is the emergency? I think my boss is dead. He's sitting in his chair and he's not moving. There's a lot of blood. The first patrol car arrives at 10:52. Officers Dan Riley and Sarah Wilson find the front door unlocked. Upon entering the house, they find the body of Maurice Turner in the living room. "Oh my God," Riley whispers, seeing the blood-soaked chair. "Call for detectives and crime scene techs," Wilson says, reaching for her radio, "and find the wife." At 11:15 a.m., Detective Mike Thompson arrives on the scene. At 45, he has investigated nearly 200 homicides, but crimes like this are rare in Magnolia. The last murder was 3 years ago, a drunken bar fight that ended in death. Thompson is a short man with graying hair and alert gray eyes. He wears simple suits from a department store and drives an old Honda, but his colleagues respect him for his professionalism and intuition. "What do we have?" he asks Officer Riley. Maurice Turner, 35 years old, mechanic, found dead in his own home by an assistant from the auto repair shop, multiple stab wounds to the chest and abdomen. Thompson puts on gloves and carefully examines the crime scene. Maurice is sitting in a chair in a natural position, as if he were watching television. Blood has soaked the upholstery and splattered onto the floor. An open beer bottle sits on the coffee table, and the remote control lies on the floor. No signs of a struggle, Thompson notes. The victim was taken by surprise. Forensic scientist David Locke is already photographing the scene. 3 blows, he says. 2 to the chest, 1 to the heart. The murder weapon is a kitchen knife with a long blade. The blows were delivered from above, at an angle. Was the killer taller than the victim? Or standing while the victim was sitting? Judging by the angle of the wounds, the attacker was to the right of the chair. Thompson examines the kitchen. The sink is clean, and there are no signs of dinner on the table. A large knife is missing from the knife block. The murder weapon was taken from here, he states. In the couple's bedroom, the bed is unmade, but it is clear that only one person slept in it. Only the right side is rumpled. Women's clothes hang in the closet, but there are no suitcases or bags. Where's the wife? Thompson asks Riley. We don't know yet. Her car's not here, and the neighbors say they haven't seen her since last night. At 12:30 p.m., Sheriff Bill Jones arrives. He is 50 years old and has been in charge of the Magnolia Police Department for 20 years. Tall, with an imposing belly and a neat mustache, Jones is more of a politician than a cop, but he knows how to manage people and resources. Mike, what do we have? A domestic murder, it appears. No signs of forced entry, nothing stolen. The killer knew the layout of the house and had access to the kitchen. The wife? She's the prime suspect, but we need to find her. At 1:15 p.m., Odette Turner is found at Magnolia Hospital. She is working her regular shift as if nothing has happened. When Detective Thompson and Officer Wilson enter the intensive care unit, the nurses point to the room where Odette is caring for a patient. Mrs. Turner? Thompson shows his badge. Detective Thompson, Magnolia Police Department. I need to talk to you. Odette looks up from the fourth she is adjusting. Her face is calm and professional. Of course. Give me a minute to finish with the patient. She methodically records the readings on the chart, checks the patient's pulse, and adjusts the pillow. Her movements are precise and confident. "What did you want to talk about?" she asks, stepping out into the hallway. "Mrs. Turner, I need to tell you that your husband has been found dead." Odette freezes. Her face turns pale. Her eyes widen. "What? Maurice is dead? How?" "He was murdered last night in your home. I'm very sorry." Odette leans against the wall as if her legs won't hold her up. "Murdered? Who? Why?" "That's what we're trying to find out. I need to ask you a few questions." "Yes, of course. Anything." They walk into an empty consultation room. Thompson turns on a tape recorder. "Mrs. Turner, where were you last night between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m.? "Here, at the hospital. I was working the night shift." "Can you confirm that?" "Ask my colleagues." "We were fighting for Mr. Johnson's life all night. He had internal bleeding after surgery." Thompson writes down the information. The alibi seems solid, but it needs to be checked. "When was the last time you saw your husband?" "Yesterday morning, before work. We had an argument." "About what?" Odette hesitates, then lowers her eyes. "Maurice was cheating on me. I found out this week." "With whom?" A long pause. Thompson sees Odette struggling with herself. "With my mother." Even an experienced detective cannot hide his surprise. "With your mother?" "Naomi Harrison. They had been seeing each other for 4 months." Thompson realizes he has a powerful motive for murder. Marital infidelity is the most common reason for domestic murders, and cheating with a relative makes the motive even stronger. "How did you react when you found out?" "I was in shock, angry. I felt betrayed." "Did you threaten your husband?" "Number I said I wanted a divorce." "Did you threaten your mother?" "I said I didn't want to see her anymore." Thompson writes down the answers, analyzing Odette's tone and body language. She seems genuinely shocked by the news of her husband's death, but shock can be faked. "Mrs. Turner, do you have a lawyer?" "A lawyer? Why would I need a lawyer?" "Given the circumstances, it might be a good idea to have one present." "Detective Thompson, I understand that I look suspicious. My cheating husband had a motive for murder. But I didn't kill Maurice. Despite what he did, I loved him." At 3:20 p.m., Thompson releases Odette on her own recognizance and drives to Naomi Harrison's house. He finds her at home in the Riverside neighborhood. Naomi opens the door in her bathrobe, her eyes red from crying. "Detective Thompson?" "Mrs. Harrison, I need to talk to you about Maurice Turner." Naomi invites him in. The house looks normal, with no signs of a man's presence. "I already know," Naomi says, sitting down on the couch. "Odette called an hour ago." "Where were you last night?" "Here, at home. I watched TV and went to bed early." "Can anyone confirm that?" "No, I live alone." Thompson notes that Naomi has no alibi, nor does she have a motive. If Maurice was going to leave his daughter for her, she could have killed him in a fit of jealousy or fear of losing him. "Mrs. Harrison, is it true that you had an affair with your son-in-law?" Naomi begins to cry. "Yes, it's true. I'm not proud of it." "How long did it last?" 4 months. "Did you plan to live together?" "We discussed it." "What changed when Odette found out?" "Maurice got scared. He said he needed time to think." Thompson realizes he has another motive. If Maurice changed his mind about leaving his wife, Naomi could have killed him in a fit of rage. By evening, the detectives have 2 prime suspects with strong motives but conflicting alibis. Odette was at work, but could have slipped away unnoticed. Naomi was home alone. A classic lack of alibi. "What do you think?" Sheriff Jones asks. "One of them killed him," Thompson replies. "The only question is who." Saturday, October 19th, 2024, 8:30 a.m. Detective Thompson arrives at Magnolia Hospital to check Odette's alibi. Head nurse Carol Davis meets him in the administrative office with the timesheets. Odette did indeed work the night shift, Carol confirms, from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. She was at the hospital all night? "Well," Carol hesitates. "Technically, yes, but we had a difficult case, Mr. Johnson with internal bleeding. Odette assisted in the operating room until 10:30. And then the patient was stable. Odette said she was going to the break room to rest. I saw her around 2 in the morning when she was checking on the patients." Thompson writes down the information. The time window between 10:30 p.m. and 2 a.m. gives Odette the opportunity to drive home, kill her husband, and return. Did she seem normal at 2 a.m.? Normal. Maybe a little tired, but that's normal after a difficult operation. Thompson drives to the Turner's house for a more thorough examination of the crime scene. Forensic scientist David Locke has already finished his preliminary work, but the detective wants to find additional clues. In the garage, he discovers an interesting detail: a small, almost invisible bloodstain on the floor. Next to it lies a crumpled paper towel. "David, take a sample of that blood," Thompson says, "and the napkin for fingerprints." In the couple's bedroom, he finds Odette's diary in the bedside table. The last entry is dated Thursday, October 17th. "I can't believe they're doing this. Mom and Maurice, how could they betray me like this? I gave 7 years of my life to this marriage. I trusted them more than anyone else in the world. Now they plan to live together and I'm supposed to just walk away and start over? Number, they'll pay for what they did to me." Thompson realizes he has found written proof of motive and intent. On Sunday morning, he receives the results of the lab tests. The blood in the garage belongs to Maurice Turner. Odette's fingerprints were found on the napkin. "She killed him in the house, then went to the garage to wash the blood off her hands," Thompson explains to Sheriff Jones. The diary entry shows premeditation. The time window during her shift allowed her to commit the murder. Enough for an arrest? More than enough. On Monday morning, Thompson and Officer Wilson arrive at the hospital. Odette is working the day shift, caring for patients in the intensive care unit. "Odette Turner, you are under arrest on suspicion of the murder of Maurice Turner." Thompson shows her the arrest warrant. Odette does not resist. She calmly takes off her gown and hands it to a colleague. "Tell Mr. Whitley that another nurse is coming tomorrow," she says, as if she were going on vacation. At the police station, Odette is placed in a holding cell. She asks for a lawyer but agrees to talk to the detective first. "Mrs. Turner, we have evidence linking you to your husband's murder," Thompson begins in the interrogation room. Odette sits upright, her hands folded on the table. She looks calm, even detached. "What evidence?" "Your fingerprints on a napkin next to your husband's blood in the garage, a diary entry about wanting revenge, a window of opportunity during the night shift." Odette is silent for a long minute, staring at the table. "I want to tell the truth," she finally says. Thompson turns on the camera. "Mrs. Turner, you understand that you have the right to remain silent?" "I understand, but I want people to know why I did it." She looks up at the detective, and he sees not remorse, but cold determination. "I killed Maurice on Friday night, around 10:30. Tell me how it happened." "I left the hospital during my break. I said I was going to the break room. I got home around 10:30. Maurice was watching TV in the living room." Odette speaks in an even, methodical voice as if describing a medical procedure. "I took a knife from the kitchen. I approached him from behind. He didn't even realize what was happening until I stabbed him the first time." "How many times did you stab him?" 3 times. 2 in the chest, 1 in the heart. He died quickly." "What happened then?" "I went to the garage and washed the blood off my hands. I wiped the knife and put it in the dishwasher. I returned to the hospital at 2 in the morning." Thompson is struck by her composure. Odette describes the murder of her own husband as routine work. "Why did you do it?" For the first time, emotion appears in Odette's voice. "They betrayed me. Both of them. The man I loved for 7 years and the woman who gave birth to me. They planned to live together and I was supposed to just disappear from their lives. You could have gotten a divorce." "Divorce? And let them be happy after what they did?" Odette's voice hardens. "Number, I gave the best years of my life to that marriage. I took care of him, cooked, cleaned, supported his dreams, and he fucked my mother in motels." "Did you plan the murder in advance?" "Yes, since Thursday when I found out the truth. I knew I would do it during the night shift. I would have an alibi. Do you regret what you did?" Odette is silent for a long time, then shakes her head. "Number, I don't regret it. Maurice got what he deserved. I only regret not killing my mother too." These words shock even an experienced detective. On Tuesday morning, news of Odette Turner's arrest spreads throughout the city. Everyone in Magnolia knows the Turner family, and the murder shocks the community. "I can't believe it," Mrs. Chung, a neighbor, tells a reporter from the local newspaper. "Odette always seemed like such a nice, quiet girl." At the hospital, Odette's colleagues are in shock. "She saved lives every day," says Dr. Miller. "How could she kill her own husband?" Head nurse Carol Davis refuses to comment on the situation, but several employees talk about how Odette changed last week. "She became more withdrawn," says nurse Jennifer Walsh. "I asked her if everything was okay, but she said she was just tired." At Turner and Sons Auto Repair Shop, Morris's father, Frank Turner, is unable to work due to his grief. "I don't understand," he tells Tommy. "Morris and Odette seemed like a happy couple. What could have led to this?" Tommy, the only witness who found the body, is also shaken. "Mr. Turner was a good man. Yes, he may have made a mistake, but he didn't deserve to die." Naomi Harrison disappears from town the day after Odette's arrest. Neighbors say they saw her loading her car early Wednesday morning. "She couldn't stay here," explains her friend Gloria Martinez. "The whole town blames her for what happened." Gloria is one of the few who knew about the affair. "Naomi told me a month ago. She said she was in love. I tried to talk her out of it, told her it would destroy the family, but she wouldn't listen." Odette Turner's first hearing is scheduled for Thursday. The court appoints her a public defender, Mary Jackson, an experienced criminal defense attorney. "My client is in a state of emotional distress due to a family tragedy," Jackson tells reporters. "We will seek to have the charges reduced from first-degree murder to manslaughter." But Odette's admission that she intended to kill makes that defense difficult. District Attorney Robert Harris insists on a first-degree murder charge. "This was a cold-blooded, premeditated murder," he says. The defendant admitted that she planned the crime in advance and used her job to create an alibi. On Friday, Detective Thompson concludes his investigation. The case seems clear. The prosecution has a confession, evidence, motive, and opportunity. But the community is divided. Some consider Odette a cold-blooded killer, while others see her as the victim of an unbearable betrayal. "What would you do in her place?" asks town resident Jim Anderson in a letter to the editor of the local newspaper. "Your husband is cheating on you with your own mother. That would destroy anyone." But most agree with the opinion of Reverend William Taylor of the Baptist Church. Betrayal does not justify murder. There are Christian ways to deal with pain: forgiveness, divorce, a new beginning. Vengeance belongs to the Lord. The trial is scheduled for January 2025. Until then, Odette remains in the county jail without bail. She spends her days in her cell reading medical journals brought to her by her lawyer. The guards say she is calm, follows the rules, and causes no trouble. "She behaves like a normal inmate," says guard Linda Brown. "She reads, sleeps, eats. No signs of remorse or emotional breakdowns." Psychiatrist Dr. Stephen Reeves, appointed by the court to evaluate Odette's condition, concludes that she is sane and understood the nature of her actions. "Mrs. Turner exhibits signs of narcissistic personality disorder," he writes in his report. "She sees herself as a victim and views the murder as just retribution. Her lack of remorse indicates an inability to empathize." In December, Odette agrees to a deal with the prosecution. Instead of life in prison for first-degree murder, she pleads guilty to second-degree murder and is sentenced to 25 years in prison with the possibility of parole after 15 years. "My client wants to take responsibility for her actions," explains Attorney Jackson. "She understands that what she did was wrong." But at the sentencing hearing in January 2025, Odette shows that she does not consider herself guilty. "Your Honor," she tells Judge Robert Davis, "I killed my husband because he betrayed me in the most cruel way. I gave him 7 years of my life, and he chose my mother. If I had the chance, I would do the same thing again." Judge Davis shakes his head. "Mrs. Turner, your unwillingness to admit that your actions were wrong is troubling. I sentence you to 25 years in state prison." After the sentence is read, Odette calmly stands up and allows the handcuffs to be placed on her. She turns to face the crowded courtroom and sees Frank Turner, the father of her murdered husband, in the front row. Their eyes meet for a second. His gaze is filled with grief and incomprehension. Hers is cold and indifferent. "He got what he deserved," she says loudly enough for him to hear. Frank Turner begins to cry. Odette Turner is transferred to a women's prison in Mississippi in February 2025. There, she works in the prison hospital, using her medical skills to help inmates. Naomi Harrison moved to Alabama to live with her sister and never returned to Magnolia. Rumor has it that she changed her last name and works in a small town under a new name. Turner and Sons Auto Repair closed 3 months after the murder. Frank Turner was unable to continue working after his son's death. The building was sold to a local car dealer who demolished it and built a new showroom. The house on Oak Street stands empty. No one wants to buy a house where a murder took place. Neighbors say they sometimes see vagrants breaking in, but the police chase them away. The town is slowly forgetting about the Turner family tragedy. New scandals and incidents are replacing old ones in residents' conversations, but those who knew the people involved in the drama remember the lesson about how betrayal and revenge can destroy lives. Odette Turner's story serves as a warning that even the most ordinary people are capable of monstrous acts when pain and rage cloud their minds.